Admiral Jack Rogers looked out the small window of the shuttle as it approached the massive space station. The Galactic Council headquarters hung in space like a giant silver snowflake, its crystal arms reaching out in all directions. Even after 30 years of space travel, humans were still amazed by alien architecture. 2 minutes until docking, said the pilot. Jack nodded and straightened his uniform. At 62 years old, he had spent most of his life in the Earth Defense Fleet. His gray hair was cut short, and his blue eyes had seen more battles than most. Today might be his hardest fight yet, a battle of words and pride. Beside him, Susan Miller checked her data tablet one last time. As Earth's chief diplomat, the small woman with short brown hair had prepared for this meeting for months. "Remember, Admiral," she said quietly, "we need their respect, not their pity." "Hard to get respect when they treat us like children," Jack replied. The third member of their team, Dr. Olivia Grant, looked up from her own tablet. The weapons scientist was younger than the others, barely 40, with red hair pulled back in a tight bun. "They've been in space for thousands of years," she said. "To them, we are children." The shuttle docked with a soft bump. When the doors opened, 2 tall, blue-skinned aliens waited for them. The Meridians were one of the friendlier species in the Council, which was why they had been chosen as guides. "Welcome to the Council Station," said the taller one. "I am Keltor, this is my assistant, Vree. We will take you to the chamber." The humans followed their guides through wide hallways. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Jack couldn't tell which end was the front. "There are 27 species in the Council," Keltor explained. "Humans will be the 28th if your application is approved. And the youngest by several thousand years," added Vree. They reached a massive door made of some kind of blue metal. Keltor placed his hand on a panel and the door slid open. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats rising up like in a sports arena. In the center was an empty space with a single platform. Hundreds of aliens sat watching as the humans entered. "The Earth delegation may approach," boomed a voice. Jack led his team to the platform. Looking up, he saw the 7 high counselors on their raised seats. In the center sat High Chancellor Vexnar, a massive creature with a hard shell like a beetle and 4 arms. "Earth has petitioned for full membership and defensive autonomy," Vexnar said. "Before we vote, we must review your military capabilities." Jack nodded to Olivia, who stepped forward and activated her tablet. Above the platform, a hologram appeared showing Earth's pride, the USS Defiant, their most advanced battleship. "The Defiant-class vessels are our main defense ships," Olivia explained. "They carry both energy-based weapons and our advanced railgun systems." A murmur ran through the chamber. Jack noticed several aliens leaning forward to whisper to each other. Some were clearly trying not to laugh. "Railguns?" asked a thin alien with gray skin, Ambassador Zel Corian of the Drazari hegemony. "You mean you still use physical projectiles?" "Yes," Olivia answered. "Our mass accelerator technology can launch a tungsten round at—" Zel Corian waved one of his 4 tentacles dismissively. "My species abandoned such barbaric technology 12 millennia ago. Throwing rocks at your enemy? How primitive." More laughter rippled through the chamber now. Jack felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression neutral. "Our weapons are effective," he said firmly. "Against whom?" Zel Corian asked. "You've never faced a real spacefaring enemy. You've never dealt with ships that can absorb or deflect energy. You've never encountered beings that can manipulate gravity or bend space." High Chancellor Vexnar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Show us your most advanced energy weapons," he requested. Olivia changed the hologram to display the Defiant's laser array and plasma cannons. "As you can see, we have developed—" "Third-tier technology at best," interrupted another counselor. "Our civilian ships have more powerful scanning devices." Jack stepped forward. "With respect, counselors, humanity has achieved in decades what took many of your species centuries. Our rate of development is impressive but irrelevant," Vexnar said. "The question before us is whether Earth can defend itself without assistance. Based on what we've seen, the answer is no." Susan quickly moved to stand beside Jack. Chancellor, we understand your concerns, but Earth has the right to maintain its own defense fleet. Rights come with capabilities, Zelkorian said. You cannot defend yourselves against real threats. Your weapons are toys compared to what exists in the galaxy. The chamber grew quiet as Vexnar leaned forward. The Council acknowledges Earth's application for membership, he said slowly. You will be granted limited trade and cultural exchange rights. However, your application for defensive autonomy is denied. Earth will be assigned protectorate status, with defensive oversight from the Drazari hegemony. Jack stiffened. Protectorate status? That meant Earth would have to allow Drazari ships to patrol their system. They would have no say in their own defense. Chancellor, he began, we must object. The decision is made, Vexnar said firmly. This meeting is adjourned. As the aliens began to leave, Jack turned to his team. Susan looked worried, while Olivia seemed deep in thought. This is worse than we expected, Susan whispered. They didn't even consider our full capabilities, Jack said. They just laughed at our railguns and dismissed everything else. Olivia was typing rapidly on her tablet. They've been using energy weapons for so long, they've forgotten the fundamentals of physics, she said quietly. A solid projectile can't be absorbed like energy can. They've developed blind spots. Jack looked around at the departing aliens, many still chuckling about the primitive humans. Let them laugh, he said. They've never faced an enemy who thinks like humans. As they walked back toward their shuttle, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. What's happening? Susan asked Keltor, who had returned to escort them. The Meridian's blue face had turned pale. Emergency broadcast, he said, checking his communicator. 3 Drazari colony worlds have just been attacked by an unknown species. Jack and his team exchanged glances. Something told them the galaxy was about to change. Take us to the emergency session, Jack ordered. Earth wants to help. The emergency meeting room was smaller than the main chamber, but still large enough to hold representatives from all 27 council species. Jack, Susan, and Olivia stood at the back, watching as the alien leaders argued among themselves. Hi. Chancellor Vexnar sat at the center table with Ambassador Zelkorian and several military commanders. A large hologram showed 3 planets with massive ships hovering above them. Play the attack footage again, Vexnar ordered. The hologram shifted to show a battle. Drazari ships fired bright energy beams at strange vessels that looked like giant sea creatures. The alien ships were huge, flat, and seemed to pulse with an inner light. When the energy beams hit them, they glowed brighter instead of taking damage. These Vorax ships absorb our energy weapons, explained a Drazari commander named Zix. His gray skin looked even paler than Zelkorian's. Each shot we fire makes them stronger. They use our own energy against us. How many ships have you lost? Asked a representative from the Meridian group. 37 capital ships, 18 colonies, millions of lives. Zix's voice was flat, as if he couldn't believe the numbers himself. Jack leaned closer to Olivia. Those ships are biological, he whispered. They look grown, not built. Olivia nodded, her eyes never leaving the hologram. And they feed on energy. Fascinating and terrifying. Susan stepped forward, drawing the attention of the council. Earth requests permission to help, she said clearly. The Arcturus colony is close to our space. We have ships that could reach it within 2 days. Ambassador Zelkorian turned to look at them. His tentacles curled in what Jack had learned was a sign of disbelief. And what would your primitive vessels do that our advanced fleets cannot? He asked. Perhaps nothing, Jack replied calmly, but we think differently. Sometimes old solutions work on new problems. High Chancellor Vexnar studied the humans for a long moment. Your offer is noted, Admiral Rogers. But what could Earth possibly contribute to this fight? Olivia stepped forward, holding her tablet. May I see the detailed scans of the Vorax ships? After a brief hesitation, Vexnar nodded to a technician. Data streamed to Olivia's device. She studied it quickly, her fingers moving across the screen. These beings absorb energy, she said. All your weapons are energy-based. What happens if you try something else? Something else? Zelkorian asked. Like what? Like physical impact, Jack suggested. Kinetic force. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other, confused. You mean missiles? Asked Commander Zix. Or railguns, Olivia said. Our primitive weapons. Zelkorian waved a tentacle dismissively. Absurd. The Vorax ships would destroy your vessels before you got close enough. Maybe, Jack admitted. But isn't it worth trying? What do you have to lose? High Chancellor Vexnar's forearms folded across his armored chest. The Arcturus colony has already been evacuated. Its defense fleet was destroyed yesterday. The Vorax are expected to attack the main planetary facility within 2 days. Let us try, Susan urged. If we fail, you've lost nothing more than you would have anyway. The council members talked among themselves. Jack could see they were desperate. 6 months ago, they had laughed at Earth's weapons. Now they might be willing to try anything. Very well, Vexnar finally said. Earth may send ships to Arcturus, but understand this. You will receive no backup. Our vessels will monitor from a safe distance, but they will not engage. Jack nodded. We understand. Thank you, Chancellor. As the humans left the meeting room, Susan grabbed Jack's arm. Are you crazy? We just volunteered to fight an enemy that has destroyed dozens of ships with technology far beyond ours. Not beyond, Olivia said, still studying her tablet. Just different. The Vorax have evolved to counter energy weapons. That's their strength, but it might also be their weakness. Jack looked at his team. Susan, send word to Earth. I want the USS Defiant and 5 support ships ready to jump to Arcturus immediately. The Defiant? But that's our flagship, Susan protested. Exactly, Jack said, and I'm going with it. Back on their shuttle, Olivia connected with Earth's defense network. Her fingers flew across her tablet as she sent data and received responses. I've got our best people working on modifications, she told Jack. If these Vorax feed on energy, our railguns might be effective. Pure kinetic force. No energy signature for them to absorb. How long to prepare? Jack asked. 24 hours to modify the ships, Olivia replied. Another 36 to reach Arcturus. That's cutting it close, Susan said. Jack stared out the window at the council station slowly shrinking behind them. It'll have to be enough. On Earth, preparations moved quickly. Captain Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching as crews worked around the clock to modify her ship. Chief Engineer Wilson reports the new railgun mounts are installed, Captain, said her first officer, Lieutenant Bill Harris. Laura nodded. At 45, she had been in space for over 20 years but had never seen combat against an alien force. No human had. What about the ammunition? She asked. Special tungsten carbide rounds with depleted uranium cores, Bill replied. No, explosives, no energy signatures. Just heavy metal hitting hard and fast. Laura walked to the window and looked out at Earth below. Beautiful, blue, and vulnerable. For all their progress, humans were still newcomers to the galaxy. The Council saw them as children playing with toys. The Council is wrong about us, she said quietly. We're not children. We're survivors. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know more about war than they do. Let's hope that's enough, Bill replied. 30 hours later, the Defiant and 5 support ships jumped into the Arcturus system. The colony planet hung in space ahead of them, blue-green and peaceful-looking. But Laura knew better. Their sensors already showed 3 massive Vorax ships approaching from the far side. All hands to battle stations, she ordered. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. As her crew rushed to their positions, Laura opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Bennett. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for all the races of the galaxy. The enemy thinks they are invincible. Let's prove them wrong. She closed the channel and turned to her weapons officer, Lieutenant Frank Lawson. Target the lead ship. Aim for what looks like their propulsion system. Let's see if our primitive weapons can do what the advanced ones couldn't. The Defiant moved forward, its railguns ready to fire as the massive Vorax ships came into view. In range in 30 seconds, Frank reported. Laura took a deep breath. Fire when ready, Lieutenant. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. The 3 Vorax ships looked like nothing Laura had ever seen. Each was shaped like a giant manta ray with long, flowing parts that moved like the tentacles of a jellyfish. They glowed with blue-green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. These weren't machines, they were alive. Distance to target? Laura asked. 60,000 kilometers in closing, Frank replied from the weapons station. His hands moved steadily over the controls, making final adjustments to the railgun targeting systems. Lieutenant Maria Sanchez monitored the communication channels. Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from a Drazari observer ship. Put it through, Laura ordered. Ambassador Zelkorian's face appeared on the main screen. Even through the alien features, Laura could see his doubt. Captain Bennett, you should retreat now, he said. The Vorax have already seen your ships. They will attack soon. Thank you for your concern, Ambassador, Laura replied calmly, but we'll stay. You don't understand, Zelkorian insisted. These creatures feed on energy. When our ships fired on them, the Vorax absorbed the blasts and became stronger. They then turned that energy back against us. We've studied the data, Laura said. We have a different approach. Before Zelkorian could respond, Maria cut in. Captain, the Vorax ships are accelerating toward us. Laura ended the transmission. All ships, maintain formation. Prepare first volley. On the main screen, the lead Vorax ship grew larger. It was massive, at least 5 times the size of the Defiant. Its surface rippled with colors and what looked like eyes blinked across its hide. They're scanning us, said Bill Harris from the science station. They're probably confused. We're not using energy shields like the Drazari ships. Good, Laura replied. Let them wonder. The Vorax ship released a blast of energy. It shot past the Defiant, missing by several kilometers. They're testing us, Frank suggested, trying to see how we react. Don't return fire yet, Laura ordered. Let them get closer. The 3 Vorax ships spread out, moving to surround the human fleet. They fired more energy blasts, but all fell short or went wide. They're not really trying to hit us, Bill said. They want us to shoot back with energy weapons so they can feed. Well, they're going to be disappointed, Laura replied. Status of railguns? Hot and ready, Frank answered. All ships report ready to fire. The lead Vorax ship suddenly accelerated, closing the distance quickly. It was now close enough that Laura could see details of its strange body. What had seemed like random patterns were actually complex organs and structures. Target what looks like their main nerve cluster, Laura ordered. That large mass near the center. Frank adjusted his targeting. Target locked. Laura took a deep breath. This was the moment that would prove whether humans belonged in space or not. Fire. The Defiant shuddered as its main railgun launched a 600-pound tungsten slug at 15 times the speed of sound. The projectile left no trail, had no energy signature, just pure kinetic force. Through the view screen, Laura watched as the slug tore through the Vorax ship's hide, leaving a clean hole. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature convulsed violently. A psychic scream hit everyone in the fleet, making heads pound and vision blur. Direct hit, Frank shouted over the pain. We've damaged it. The Vorax ship writhed in space, leaking a glowing blue fluid from the wound. The other 2 Vorax ships paused, seeming confused. All ships, fire at will, Laura ordered, fighting through the lingering headache from the psychic scream. Target their nerve centers or propulsion systems. The human fleet opened fire. Railgun slugs tore through the Vorax ships, which had no defense against physical projectiles. They had evolved to absorb energy, but solid metal moving at hypersonic speeds was something entirely different. The lead Vorax ship tried to retreat, but 3 more slugs hit it in quick succession. The creature stopped moving and began to drift. One down, Laura said. Focus fire on the one to our left. The second Vorax ship was quicker. It released a massive energy pulse that washed over the human fleet. Power fluctuations, called out Chief Engineer Doug Wilson from Engineering. "They're trying to overload our systems." "Switch to backup power," Laura ordered. "Maintain fire." The support ships Liberty and Courage moved to flank the second Vorax ship, firing their railguns in a crossfire pattern. Slugs tore through the creature from multiple angles. Within minutes, it too stopped moving. The third Vorax ship turned and accelerated away from the battle. "They're running," Bill said in amazement. "Pursue and disable," Laura ordered. "Don't let it escape to warn others." The fastest human ship, the Swift, chased after the fleeing Vorax. Its railguns fired in rapid succession, hitting the creature's propulsion organs. The Vorax slowed, then stopped moving altogether. "All 3 Vorax ships disabled," Frank reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "We did it, Captain." The bridge crew broke into cheers. Laura allowed herself a small smile. Before restoring order, "Damage report," she called out. "Minor power fluctuations only," Doug replied from Engineering. "No structural damage, no casualties." Laura opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Bennett. Excellent work, everyone. Maintain positions and keep weapons hot. We don't know if there are more of them out there." She then opened a channel to the Drazari observer ship. Ambassador Zelkorian's face appeared on screen. His 4 eyes were wide, and his tentacles hung limply in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "You destroyed them all?" "Not destroyed," Laura corrected. "Disabled. They're still alive but unable to move or fight. Your scientists might want to study them." Zelkorian seemed unable to speak for a moment. "How?" he finally asked. "How did your primitive weapons succeed where our advanced technology failed?" "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one," Laura replied. "Your energy weapons made them stronger. Our solid slugs just made holes." "The Council must know of this immediately," Zelkorian said. "This changes everything." After the transmission ended, Laura sat back in her command chair. Her crew looked at her with pride. "Send a message to Admiral Rogers," she told Maria. "Tell him Operation Thunderclap successful. All targets neutralized, no casualties." Then add, "Turns out rocks still work pretty well." As the message was sent, Laura looked out at the drifting Vorax ships. Humanity had just proven its worth to the galaxy. Not with fancy technology, but with creative thinking and old-fashioned physics. "Prepare to return to Earth," she ordered. "I think we're going to have a different reception at the Council this time." The human fleet formed up around the disabled Vorax ships, waiting for Drazari research vessels to arrive. In the silence of space, an important lesson had been taught. Never underestimate a species just because they seem less advanced. Sometimes being different was the greatest advantage of all. News of the human victory spread quickly through the galaxy. By the time the USS Defiant and its fleet returned to Earth, the story had reached every corner of Council space. Captain Laura Bennett and her crew were greeted as heroes. 2 weeks later, Admiral Jack Rogers, Susan Miller, and Dr. Olivia Grant stood once again before the Galactic Council. This time the chamber was completely silent as they entered. No whispers, no laughs, just respectful attention. High Chancellor Vex Nar's massive form shifted as the humans approached the central platform. "The Council recognizes Admiral Jack Rogers in the Earth delegation," he announced formally. Jack nodded, standing tall in his dress uniform. At his side, Olivia carried data tablets showing the battle results, while Susan had prepared diplomatic notes. "Thank you, Chancellor," Jack said. "We are pleased to report that the Vorax threat at Arcturus has been neutralized. All 3 enemy ships were disabled with minimal damage to our fleet and no casualties." Ambassador Zelkorian rose from his seat. His gray skin seemed paler than before, and his tentacles moved slowly. "The Council has reviewed the battle footage," he said. "Captain Bennett and her crew showed remarkable creativity in their approach. They did what they were trained to do," Jack replied. "Find solutions, not excuses." Zelkorian's eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of discomfort among his species. "I must acknowledge that I was incorrect in my assessment of human military capabilities." murmur ran through the chamber. For a Drazari to admit a mistake was almost unheard of. High Chancellor Vexnar raised his hand for silence. Dr. Grant, would you explain to the Council how your weapons were effective when our most advanced technology failed? Olivia stepped forward, activating her tablet. A hologram appeared showing a Vorax ship with a railgun slug passing through it. The answer is simple physics, she said. The Vorax evolved to absorb and redirect energy. Your laser cannons, plasma weapons, and force beams all gave them power. But our railguns fire solid metal at extremely high speeds. There's no energy for them to absorb, just physical impact, like throwing a rock, Zelkorian said quietly, repeating his earlier mockery now with new understanding. Exactly, Olivia agreed. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. You've been using energy weapons so long you forgot the basics. Council member from a bird-like species leaned forward. Could the Vorax adapt to physical weapons? Possibly, Olivia admitted. All species evolve. But they would need to develop thick armor or deflection fields, which would make them slower and less efficient at absorbing energy. They can't optimize for both. Jack watched as the council members processed this information. They had believed their technology was the peak of development, that their path was the only path. Now they were faced with evidence that their assumptions had nearly cost them everything. The research vessels have captured one of the disabled Vorax ships for study, Vexnar said. The others were destroyed as a precaution. Our scientists are already examining ways to incorporate physical weapons into our defense systems. Susan stepped forward. And Earth's status within the Council? Will we remain a protectorate? The chamber fell silent again. Vexnar's forearms made a complex gesture that Jack recognized as a sign of respect. The Council rescinds Earth's protectorate status, Vexnar announced. Humanity is granted full membership and military autonomy, effective immediately. Applause broke out across the chamber, something Jack had never heard in the formal council space before. He allowed himself a small smile. They had earned their place. After the session ended, Jack and his team were approached by representatives from 12 different species. All wanted to discuss defense partnerships, weapon exchanges, and joint training exercises. Quite a change from our last visit, Susan whispered to Jack as they spoke with a group of Meridians. Nothing earns respect like success, Jack replied. Later, in a private meeting room, Admiral Rogers sat with Captain Bennett, who had been invited to address the Council's military committee. Laura still looked tired from the battle and the debriefings that followed, but her eyes were bright. What's next, Admiral? She asked. The Council species are falling over themselves to work with us now. Jack looked out the window at the stars. We teach them and we learn from them. The Vorax won't be the last new threat the galaxy faces. We need each other. But they'll never laugh at our primitive weapons again, Laura said with a smile. No, they won't. Back on Earth, factories worked around the clock to fill orders from across the galaxy. Council species were retrofitting their ships with railguns, mass drivers, and other kinetic weapons. Human engineers traveled to alien worlds to help install the systems, while alien scientists came to Earth to study how humans approached problem-solving. In his office at Earth Defense Headquarters, Jack reviewed reports of these exchanges. Susan entered carrying fresh information from the Council. The Drazari have successfully tested their first railgun system, she reported. They're calling it the Rogers design in your honor. Jack shook his head. Not my design, that was all. Olivia and her team. It's symbolic, Susan replied. You stood up for humanity when they laughed at us. Now they're following our lead. Before Jack could respond, an alert sounded. A message from the Deep Space Monitoring Network appeared on his screen. What is it? Susan asked, seeing his expression change. New contacts, Jack said, reading quickly. Moving toward Council space from outside the galaxy. Not Vorax. Something different. Hostile? Unknown. But the Council is calling an emergency session. Jack stood and straightened his uniform. They're requesting Earth's presence specifically. They want our help, Susan realized. Jack nodded. 6 months ago, they thought we were children playing with toys. Now they want our perspective. He smiled slightly. Funny how things change. As they prepared to return to the council station, Jack thought about how far humanity had come. They had proved themselves not through advanced technology, but through creativity and willingness to try different approaches. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but perhaps humans had something special to offer after all. Prepare a team, he told Susan. Our best tactical minds. If there's something new coming, I want us ready to face it. What should I tell them? Is the mission? Susan asked. Jack looked at the star map showing the approaching unknown vessels. Tell them we're going to teach the galaxy another lesson in problem solving. The human way. 3 days later, the largest council chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 28 member species had gathered to discuss the new threat. At the center table sat Admiral Jack Rogers, Captain Laura Bennett, Dr. Olivia Grant, and Susan Miller. Next to them were High Chancellor Vexinar and Ambassador Zelkorian. The unknown vessels will reach the outer Meridian colony in 5 days, reported a council military officer. The hologram in the center of the room showed 7 large ships moving steadily through space. What do we know about them? Jack asked. Very little, Vexinar answered. They do not match any known design. They have not responded to communication attempts. Their energy signatures are unlike anything we have seen before. Laura studied the hologram carefully. Their formation suggests military training. See how they protect their flanks? Olivia was examining sensor data on her tablet. These readings are strange. Their hull material isn't registering properly on scans. The Council has assembled a defense fleet, Zelkorian said. 20 ships from 12 species, including 3 of yours, Admiral. Jack nodded. After the success at Arcturus, Earth had committed ships to the joint defense of Council space. The USS Defiant would lead the human contribution. But before we engage, Vexinar continued, we wanted your assessment, your human perspective. 1 year ago, such a request would have been unthinkable. Now, the most advanced species in the galaxy were turning to the newcomers for advice. We should attempt peaceful contact again, Susan suggested, but prepare for conflict. And we need more information, Olivia added. We can't develop an effective strategy without understanding what we're facing. Jack looked around the table. I propose a small reconnaissance mission. Fast ships, minimal crew. Get close enough to gather better data, then retreat. A wise approach, Vexinar agreed. Who should lead this mission? All eyes turned to Laura. She straightened in her chair. The Swift is the fastest ship we have. I can take a small team and be back within 3 days. The Swift isn't a science vessel, Zelkorian pointed out. We'll take Dr. Grant, Laura replied, and perhaps one of your scientists as well. Olivia looked surprised but nodded. I've been working on some new scanning technology. This would be a good test. The mission was approved. 24 hours later, the Swift left the Council station, with Laura, Olivia, and a Meridian scientist named Keltor on board. The small ship could move faster than any other vessel in Council space, hopefully allowing them to observe the unknown fleet and escape before being detected. 2 days into their journey, they reached the edge of a distant star system. The 7 unknown ships were passing through, still on course for Council space. Passive scans only, Laura ordered as they approached. No active sensors that might give away our position. Olivia and Keltor worked at the science station, gathering data, without emitting detectable energy. The Swift hung in the shadow of a small moon, watching. I'm getting clearer readings now, Olivia said after several hours. These ships aren't like anything in Council records. Keltor's blue skin paled slightly. There's something familiar about their energy pattern, but I can't place it. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the Swift. We've been detected, called out Lieutenant Frank Lawson from the tactical station. One of the unknown ships is breaking formation, Laura observed. It's heading toward us, fast. Retreat course plotted, Frank reported. Wait, Olivia said urgently. I'm getting clear readings now. Their hull, it's made of living metal. Living metal? Laura asked. Keltor made a surprised sound. The ancient texts mention such technology from before the council was formed. Whoever they are, they're closing fast, Frank warned. We need to leave now. 1 more minute, Olivia pleaded. There's something important here. Laura hesitated, then nodded. 1 minute, then we go. Olivia and Keltor worked frantically, gathering final data as the unknown ship approached. Just as their time was up, Olivia's eyes widened. Oh no, she whispered. They're not unknown at all. They're Voraks. Impossible, Keltor said. These ships look nothing like the ones at Arcturus. Not the same type, Olivia explained quickly. But the same species. These must be their warships. The ones we faced were just scouts. Laura didn't. Wait to hear more. Get us out of here, maximum speed. The Swift turned and accelerated away, but the pursuing ship was faster than expected. A strange energy beam shot past them, missing by meters. They're firing, Frank reported. Evasive maneuvers, Laura ordered. Get that data back to the council at all costs. The Swift zigzagged through space, trying to escape. The pursuing ship fired again. This time, the beam grazed their hull. Damage to the engine section, Frank called out. Our speed is dropping. Laura made a quick decision. Send the data packet now. Emergency transmission to the council. As Frank sent the information, Laura turned to Olivia. What did you learn? What are we facing? The Voraks we defeated were biological ships, Olivia explained quickly. These are different. They've merged biology with technology, living metal that can absorb energy and resist physical impacts. The pursuing ship was closing the gap. Laura knew they couldn't outrun it. Can they be defeated? She asked. Every system has a weakness, Olivia replied. We just need to find it. Another energy beam hit the Swift, causing systems to flicker. Hull breach in Section 3, Frank reported. Sealing emergency bulkheads. We won't make it back, Laura realized. But we can make sure this wasn't for nothing. She turned to Frank. Are the railguns operational? Yes, Captain, but our previous tactics won't work against these ships. We're not trying to win, Laura said. We're trying to learn. She looked at Olivia. What should we target? Where might their weakness be? Olivia studied the readings. Their power core. It's deep inside the ship, heavily protected, but it's generating massive energy. Target the power core, Laura ordered. Full spread of railgun slugs, let's see how they react. The Swift turned to face the pursuing ship. Its railguns fired, sending a dozen tungsten slugs toward the enemy. Most bounced off the living metal hull, but one penetrated deeper. The Voraks ship shuddered. Then it changed. The hull flowed like liquid, sealing the damage and thickening in the targeted area. It's adapting, Olivia said in awe. But the adaptation is drawing power from other systems. Look, their weapons are losing energy. Laura understood immediately. They can't do everything at once. If they strengthen their hull, something else weakens. The Swift shook as another hit struck them. Engines failing, Frank reported. We have minutes at most. Send everything we've just learned to the council, Laura ordered. Tell them, the Voraks can adapt, but adaptation has a cost. Force them to choose. As Frank sent the final message, the pursuing Voraks ship prepared to fire again. Laura looked at her small crew. It's been an honor, she said. The final beam struck the Swift, overloading its systems. But as the small ship broke apart, its data was already reaching the council. 3 days later, Admiral Rogers stood before the assembled council fleet. 23. Ships of various designs, all now equipped with both energy weapons and physical projectile systems. Captain Bennett and her crew gave their lives to bring us vital information, he told the fleet commanders. Now we use it. Olivia's assistant, a young scientist named Peter Clark, had analyzed the data. The Voraks warships can adapt to our attacks, but each adaptation draws power from other systems. We need to force them to make choices until they can't adapt anymore. The Council fleet moved to intercept the Voraks ships at the edge of the Meridian system. What followed was the largest space battle in Council history. The combined fleet used alternating attacks, energy weapons followed by physical projectiles, forcing the Voraks ships to constantly readapt their defenses. As the battle raged, Jack thought of Laura and her crew, Their sacrifice had given the Council the knowledge needed to win. In the Council chamber weeks later, Admiral Rogers listened as High Chancellor Vexnar addressed the assembled representatives. "The Vorax threat has been neutralized," Vexnar announced. "Thanks to the courage of Captain Bennett and the swift and the combined strength of all Council species." Jack sat beside Susan and Peter, now the head of Earth's Weapon Research Division. On the wall behind them hung a new symbol, a shield bearing the images of both energy beams and physical projectiles intertwined. "From this day forward," Vexnar continued, "no Council species shall mock the methods or technologies of another. Different is not primitive. Different is essential." As the chamber erupted in applause, Jack looked out at the stars. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not by becoming like the others, but by remaining uniquely human. To Laura, he whispered, raising an imaginary glass to the hero who had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. "Sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from."